Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is Pro-Revenge Story. This happened about 6 months ago, but I just heard about how far my revenge went. I served as a Navy enlisted member stationed in Yokosuka, Japan for several years before getting transferred back to the States. I worked at the main hospital that served military personnel and their families. Since it's a small facility, everyone knows everyone else. A few weeks after I left, word got around about a new physician officer in radiology. My former coworkers kept telling me, "This guy's impossible to work with," but that wasn't unusual for new officers. The real story broke when someone spotted a letter he'd printed and left on his desk. They snapped a photo and sent it to me. He was requesting a transfer from enlisted housing to officer quarters. "Have you seen this garbage?" My friend texted me with the photo. "He actually submitted this to housing." "No way," I replied. "He really wrote this officially?" "Yeah, and wait until you read it. You're going to lose it." For context, military housing availability depends on marital status, family size, rank, and base-specific policies. Officer housing typically offers better amenities than enlisted quarters, but in Yokosuka, the standard is pretty uniform since it's overseas. The housing consists of apartment buildings called towers, like Fuji Tower. Out of 9 towers, only 2 are designated for officers since enlisted personnel significantly outnumber them. When getting stationed, service members must apply for either on-base or off-base housing before arrival. If you're late applying or space is limited, you get assigned wherever there's room. That's how this officer ended up in an enlisted tower. Many officers before him had been placed in enlisted housing without complaint. His letter read, and yes, this guy has a PhD. "I have many valid objections to living in a building of almost all enlisted and even many lower enlisted being an officer. There is a lot of crime, violent actions, drug use, and alcoholism that happen in enlisted housing. There are also sexual assaults and other perverts. I have a good-looking family, a wife and 2 daughters ages 3 and 4. They are prime targets to be victims for these enlisted deviant activities. My family should be safe in housing that is with officers. Officers are much more respectable, and these types of deviant activities are incredibly rare compared to the deviant activities of enlisted being commonplace. Other officer families will not want to visit us because our family lives in enlisted housing. My children need to make friends with other officer children. My wife needs to make friends with other officers' wives. I need to make friends with other officers. Forcing an officer to live in a large apartment building with almost all enlisted is unethical." The most ironic part? He had served as an enlisted army member before officer school. "Can you believe this guy used to be enlisted?" I messaged my friend. "The nerve of this dude," she responded. "Everyone here is furious." Since I was separating soon, I decided to have some fun. I created a burner Facebook account and posted the letter with his photo on a popular military enlisted group page. Within 48 hours, it went viral. But I wasn't finished. The military has these things called challenge coins, like trading cards but in coin form. I designed one featuring his face on one side and a middle finger on the reverse. I also created stickers showcasing our deviant pride. Other coin designs emerged, but mine became the most popular. I sold over 70 coins at a deep discount to my friend who originally sent me the picture, letting her resell them for profit. His face appeared everywhere because people display their coins on their desks. He couldn't escape seeing his face wherever he went at work. Since the coins didn't include his name, he couldn't officially claim it was him. "These coins are selling like crazy," my friend texted. "He looks so uncomfortable every time he walks by someone's desk." I expanded sales stateside and even shipped some to Europe, earning about $3,000 overall. The story got picked up by the online naval newspaper and 2 popular YouTube channels. In the military, higher-ups only pay attention when something's too big to ignore. This reached that level fast. The officer faced captain's mast, essentially Navy court. He tried claiming his wife wrote the letter, but that backfired when her writing samples proved even worse. She attempted to take the blame, saying, "I wrote it because I was concerned for our children." But no one bought it. They both disappeared from social media. He received 3 UCMJ articles for his offenses. The consequences didn't stop there. In the military, you have time limits to achieve certain ranks. Miss promotion and you're out. His UCMJ articles made him ineligible for promotion, leading to involuntary separation. Here's the best part. The officer program had paid for his PhD, which came with a 10-year service commitment. Leave before completing those years, and you repay the education costs. So he lost his job, and now owes the military for his PhD. While waiting for transfer paperwork back stateside, he faced complete social isolation, as nobody would work with him. A hilarious detail. The hatchet became our symbol of enlisted deviance, because in his letter, He claimed two gangs were attacking each other with hatchets and other weapons at an enlisted housing unit. The next one is an entitled people story. 3 years ago, my wife and I finally saved enough to buy our dream home in what we thought was a nice, quiet neighborhood. The house had everything we wanted: good schools nearby for our kids, a spacious backyard, and enough room for our growing family. The only downside was the HOA, but the previous owners assured us they were reasonable and mostly focused on keeping property values up. For the first year, everything was fine. We paid our dues on time, followed the rules about trash cans and lawn maintenance, and generally kept to ourselves. Then came the summer when we decided to install a pool for our kids. Let me tell you, getting a pool installed is already a headache with permits, contractors, and the general mess of construction. But we did everything by the book. We submitted our plans to the HOA Architectural Committee, got approval, and proceeded with the installation. The pool was beautiful, nothing fancy, just a standard in-ground pool that our kids absolutely loved. Here's where the trouble started. In our city, there's a safety ordinance that requires all residential pools to have a fence at least 5 feet tall with a self-closing, self-latching gate. It's a reasonable rule designed to prevent kids from accidentally falling in, and as a parent, I fully supported it. So we installed a nice black aluminum fence that was exactly 5 feet high around the entire pool area. 2 weeks after the fence went up, I got a letter from the HOA. Dear homeowner, it has come to our attention that your recently installed pool fence violates HOA regulations, which state that all fences must be no taller than 4 feet. You are hereby required to remove and replace the fence within 30 days or face a fine of $100 per day until compliance is achieved. I was confused and annoyed. When I checked the HOA guidelines, sure enough, there was a rule limiting fence height to 4 feet. But city ordinance required 5 feet for pool safety. I thought this would be a simple fix. Surely the HOA would understand that we were following city law. I called the HOA president, a woman I'll just call Miss President. She had been running the HOA for about 15 years from what I heard from neighbors. Hello, I'm calling about the letter I received regarding my pool fence, I explained. Yes, what about it? Her tone was already dismissive. Well, the city requires pool fences to be at least 5 feet tall for safety reasons, but your letter says I need to reduce it to 4 feet. Our regulations clearly state 4 feet maximum. Those were the rules when you bought the house. I understand that, but city ordinance supersedes HOA rules, and the ordinance requires 5 feet for pool fences specifically. She sighed loudly. Everyone wants exceptions. If we make one for you, we'll have to make them for everyone. The rules are the rules. It's not an exception, it's literally the law. I can't be in compliance with both. Then you shouldn't have installed a pool. The fence needs to be 4 feet. End of discussion. Before she could hang up, I tried one more time. Can we at least discuss this at the next board meeting? I'm happy to bring the city ordinance documentation. The board has already reviewed your case and made its decision. The letter stands. I was stunned. They had reviewed my case without even talking to me. That night, I did more research and found that not only was the 5-foot requirement a city law, but state law also had similar requirements. I drafted a polite but firm response to the HOA explaining the legal situation and requesting that they reconsider. Their response came a week later, another violation notice, this time with a $500 administrative fee added on for repeated non-compliance. I was furious. My wife suggested we just pay to have the fence lowered to avoid the hassle, but I couldn't get past two things. First, lowering the fence would literally be breaking the law and creating a safety hazard for neighborhood children. Second, the principle of the thing was just wrong. I decided to consult with a lawyer who specialized in HOA disputes. I found a great attorney named Jim who had dealt with similar cases before. This is actually pretty straightforward, Jim told me after reviewing everything. HOA cannot enforce rules that violate state or local law, period. They're trying to bully you, and unfortunately many homeowners just cave because fighting is too expensive or stressful. So what do? I asked. First, we send them a formal letter citing the relevant laws and informing them that their demand is unenforceable. If they persist, we file for injunctive relief to prevent them from fining you, and we can consider a countersuit for harassment and legal fees. The letter went out the next day. The HOA response, they filed a lawsuit against me for violating the covenant and demanded that I pay all accrued fines, now over $2,000, plus their legal fees. I couldn't believe it. Were they really willing to go to court over 1 foot of fence height? Apparently, yes. Jim assured me we had a solid case and suggested we countersue for legal fees and harassment. These types of HOA only respond to strength, he explained. If they think you'll back down, they'll keep pushing. The day of our first court appearance, I was nervous but confident. Miss President showed up with 2 other board members and their attorney, a slick-looking guy in an expensive suit. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, asked the HOA to present their case first. Their attorney stood and began a lengthy speech about the sanctity of HOA covenants and how allowing exceptions would lead to neighborhood chaos. He presented photos of my fence and copies of the HOA guidelines highlighting the 4-foot rule. When it was our turn, Jim simply presented copies of the city and state laws requiring 5-foot pool fences, along with documentation showing the HOA was aware of these requirements when they approved my pool installation. The judge looked at the HOA attorney. "Counselor, are you asking this homeowner to violate city and state safety ordinances?" "Your Honor, our covenants were established before these ordinances and should take precedence. The homeowner agreed to these covenants when purchasing the property." The judge actually laughed. "That's not how the law works. HOA covenants cannot supersede safety laws. The homeowner is legally required to maintain a 5-foot fence around the pool." Miss President whispered something to her attorney, who then said, "In that case, Your Honor, perhaps the pool itself should be removed as it creates a situation where the homeowner cannot comply with our covenants." The judge's expression darkened. "Let me be clear. The pool was approved by your architectural committee. The fence meets legal safety requirements. Your covenant, as applied to pool safety fences, is unenforceable." Case dismissed. I thought that would be the end of it, but Jim nudged me. "What about our countersuit, Your Honor?" The judge nodded. "Yes, let's proceed with that." Our countersuit was pretty straightforward. We argued that the HOA had engaged in harassment by continuing to issue fines after being informed of the legal requirements, that they had filed a frivolous lawsuit knowing their demand was illegal, and that they should cover all my legal expenses. The HOA attorney tried to argue that they were simply enforcing their rules in good faith, but the judge wasn't having it. "Good faith would have involved researching the applicable laws when this issue was first raised," she said. "Instead, you doubled down and filed a lawsuit demanding the homeowner break the law. That's not good faith, that's bullying." In the end, the judge ruled in our favor on all counts. The HOA was ordered to cease all enforcement actions regarding my pool fence, pay all my legal fees, which by then had reached almost $8,000, pay $5,000 in punitive damages for harassment, issue a formal apology to me at the next HOA meeting, amend their covenants to explicitly exempt pool safety fences from the height restriction walking out of the courthouse. I felt vindicated, but also exhausted. Jim patted me on the back. "You did a good thing here," he said. "Not just for yourself, but for everyone in your neighborhood. These power-hungry HOA boards need to be checked sometimes." The aftermath was interesting. The HOA held an emergency meeting to discuss the judgment. Apparently, many homeowners had no idea about the lawsuit until they learned the HOA would need to raise dues to cover the legal expenses and damages. This prompted questions, which led to the whole story coming out. At the next regular HOA meeting, which I made sure to attend, Miss President delivered the court-ordered apology through gritted teeth. You could tell it was killing her. Several homeowners approached me afterward to share their own stories of HOA overreach. One guy had been fighting them for years over a wheelchair ramp for his mother. The best part? At the annual board election 2 months later, Miss President and most of her cronies were voted out. The new board president, a retired civil engineer named Bob, made a point of reviewing all the HOA rules for conflicts with local laws. They found several, including the fence height issue, and amended them appropriately. As for me, I still have my 5-foot pool fence, my kids are safe, and I haven't received a violation notice in over a year. I've even joined the architectural committee to help ensure this kind of nonsense doesn't happen to anyone else. The lesson here? Know your rights, know the law, and don't let bullies push you around, even if they call themselves a homeowners association. Sometimes you have to stand your ground to make things better for everyone. And if you're wondering whether it was worth the stress and hassle, absolutely. Every time I see my kids safely playing in the pool behind that 5-foot fence, I know I made the right call. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I worked at a restaurant. We had a front salad bar, a buffet with a salad bar, as well as things like a juice bar, an ice cream counter, and a small alcohol room with a bar. It was so popular and also a bit expensive, but somehow so underpaid, understaffed, and poorly managed. Jenny is the daughter and the only child of the owners of the restaurant. She's extremely spoiled. She almost always gets her way, and she has a temper where she will get pissed off and just lay into the person for an hour straight. She used to come in screaming at everyone for nothing and made racist or nasty jokes. She'd pushed people to come in sick, then ask why they were so slow. Just the typical manager from hell. Marco, one of the kitchen managers, is the son of a family friend and a beloved member of the community. His management consisted of micromanaging, criticizing our work, blaming random people for things, giving extreme time constraints for tasks, encouraging everyone to smile, and going around asking people, while they were in the middle of working their 3 jobs, when they wanted to come in the next day, or if they'd like to cover a shift on Saturday or whatever. He would forget to do things and then blame other people. Then he would go around criticizing people for their time management or responsibility. Anytime we reported that something was broken or something wasn't working, he just told us to figure it out and nothing would be done about it until Jenny came in screaming at everyone and narrowed it down to Marco. We had other managers coming in and out. They couldn't take it. There were people who were suddenly hired to take on big positions despite having no idea what they were doing, or joined with less than a full day of training just because the place was desperate. The waitresses were paid less than $4 an hour, and some of them were doing part of the dishwasher's duties, front manager duties, cleaning jobs including kitchen and employee bathroom. I want to say dishwashing was the worst, as 3 different people would come to work drunk or high every day just to tolerate everything. My coworker DJ kept up even when other dishwashers weren't working, helped me or the waitress clean, and literally had to monitor food that was cooking, and he'd keep track of orders because the manager Marco and the chef wanted to mess around or go stand by the door and smoke. There were days where staff members would break down or get sick pulling a double shift, and he did everything for them. There was no choice. My job was preparing and filling food items for the main salad bar in front every day, and some days I also did salad bar in the buffet. I had other things to do as part of my normal salad buffet job, including making food for reservations, preparing and stocking juice bar, and helping move stock into the freezers and fridge. On top of that, I was packing non-salad food for delivery and takeout, helping maintain and stock up to half the buffet, helping waitresses keep up with serving and bussing, doing ice cream and desserts, cleaning the whole kitchen and storage areas and customer bathrooms, helping the bar staff, helping at the front desk whenever I was out, and preparing ingredients or fetching things for the normal chef buffet chefs, all for a little more than minimum wage. I fell every day because I was running on wet floors and I had a heat stroke and even had to go to the ER for injuries. On buffet days I had a partner, but that didn't matter. She just stood around right in front of the manager Marco, talking to her cousin who worked there while watching me work, and both she and Marco would take breaks every now and then to criticize my work or my speed. Everything was held together by DJ and me. We were teenagers on rockstar drinks, so we took whatever was coming to us. We kept everything going so well that we got scheduled to work almost every day, then every weekend. Jenny gave us free soda privilege, and we got raises 2 times in 5 months, which were only 10C, but did look good to me because my dad praised all of my paychecks. He didn't know what was going on, and that I was working crazy hours and he thought I was overpaid. Most of the customers were very sweet, so we tried our best to be of service, and a lot of them were regulars or people who came in to support Marco or everyone. There was always so much pressure on DJ and me. Also, DJ isn't white, and he would always get racist jokes and comments towards him. Marco and Jenny either did nothing or were the offenders. Most of the criticism or Marco's projection went to him, despite him doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing, and occasionally messing up due to extreme stress or time constraint. After a certain point, almost every criticism was race-based in some way. One horrible Saturday, there were 3x as many reservations as usual, on top of all bars and buffet being open. I clocked in and found out one of the managers let go of DJ the afternoon before. Absolutely no one knew why, including DJ, and I'm really assuming it was Marco. I already had zero hope for the day, and the only thing fueling me was the customers and my paycheck, of course. In just the first hour, I passed Marco at least 5 times trying to get things done. There was one time we accidentally made eye contact while I was helping a waitress, but at some point I went to the freezer in the back to help load some ice cream in, and he happened to walk in at the same time that I was standing there for 3 seconds doing nothing, waiting for my coworker to bring in the dolly. He gave me this frustrated look like, "Get back to work." He caught me maybe a half hour later while I was coming into the back of the kitchen, near the freezer, to mop up some spilled water. The final time he caught me, I was in the freezer again looking at the inventory to see what fruit we had enough of, because I could only serve what we had enough of in case people requested more, and Marco had enough. He said, "The place is busy as duck and you're in here just standing in the freezer for like 4 hours. Go home." I gave him this look like WTF, and he reiterated that I was done for the night. I was not arguing with Marco. This was not my problem. I just said thanks, took my apron off, and headed out. Both the employee doors were blocked by trash cans and my partner standing there with a whole cart of things talking to her cousin, so I went to use the main side door in the front of the restaurant. Jenny saw me and asked where I was going. I put on a smile and said, "Man, Marco is the best guy ever. He just randomly came up to me and told me to take the night off." Jenny's face went from confused to shocked to livid in the span of 1 second. She quickly told me, "Don't go just yet." And she stormed into the kitchen screaming, "Marco!" I pretended to not hear her over the music and customers, and I just turned around and left. I got over 10 phone calls, but I simply let my phone ring. I waited until my partner updated her Facebook status with, "Finally closed, girl night time," or something like that, and I finally texted Marco back and gave an apology that sucked up in the most condescending way, but in a way that was personal that only he would understand if he were to show it to someone. I came back the next morning and it was a complete disaster. Marco and Jenny came in looking dead tired because they spent the rest of the night in overtime busting ass trying to keep things going. There were actually dishes and trash bags piled up, and both the buffet and kitchen were wrecked because Jenny and her dad didn't want to keep the workers late and pay them overtime. The restaurant had to close for the summer. They posted all these job opportunities in schools and on Facebook and eventually opened back up, but I never answered and DJ didn't accept amends, so it was a whole spiral. Because of me leaving and DJ being fired, they had to close down their ice cream and minimize their buffet, and they now close earlier because they can't handle it. There are less customers supporting Marco, and there were even customers saying they aren't coming back until Marco or Jenny leaves. There's a waitress who joined during my time there, and it was her first job ever. Now she is the only previous employee left, and she ended up getting appointed as a manager at some point. I think they had to offer her a lot of money to stay because she bought a new house. Marco is the only other manager now. Marco is still asking me to come back, and since I deleted Facebook, I kept that phone number open with prepaid service on my old phone just for the purpose of reading his texts during my lunch. Anyway,